And what I've had to really transform my brain is to just say, I'm going to give them good direction on, this is my vision, this is what I want, and let them have the autonomy to go build it the way they want to build it, right?
All right. Welcome to the Untrapped Entrepreneur Podcast. I have Cameron Gawley here, and we were just chatting about the intro we're going to have for him here. We asked a robot, as you guys know if you've been listening to the show, see how much the robot knows about Cam. And you can either call it a liar, you can call it a truth teller, or somewhere in between. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So I said, hey, I'm interviewing this guy, Cam, on the show. Tell me 100-word or less bio. So it says, Cameron Gawley, a passionate entrepreneur and growth marketing strategist from Dallas, co-founded BuzzShift, a successful digital strategy agency, is currently the co-founder and chief growth officer of The Runway and Oak and Eden Whiskey. Great whiskey, by the way. Throughout his career, he's been dedicated to fostering growth and direct-to-consumer brands and mentoring entrepreneurs across all age groups. Cameron's journey from selling baseball cards to navigating the tech-enabled product development landscape embodies the spirit of entrepreneurship and his belief in the power of mentoring and a growth mindset. His unique insights have made him an invaluable asset to startups and established brands alike.
Okay.
What do you think, man?
I mean, I'll take that. I mean, if AI is there, like that's interesting. Like, I mean, is that what we're gonna do now? Is just like, hey, I need an intro for this person. Give it to me in 100 words or less, and then boom, there it is. Like it's accurate. I mean, I think that's awesome. Like, that's pretty wild, man. It's really wild. Like I'm 1,000% all in on AI. Like, I love it so much. So anyways, that just justifies that even more. So that's really wild.
Okay, so everyone's been asking for these after the show. For $5, you just Venmo me. You got your bio, man.
Okay.
Got it for you.
All right. You're a prompt engineer now, and you probably dialed in on the tone and voice and the wit. You're like, make sure it's Ben Davis, tone, voice, and wit. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Well,
man.
See, I'm not famous enough yet to even know my tone. I'm like, hey, write this in Ben Davis's tone, and then it's like, who is Ben Davis? So I'm
Which Ben Davis?
I'm trying to put more stuff out there.
Yeah.
You know? It got me confused with the monkey on the T-shirt. I don't know if you've seen that brand, Ben Davis.
No.
Popular skateboarding.
Oh, yeah. I have seen that skateboarding brand. That's exactly what I thought about when you said that. Yes, I have seen that. That's hilarious.
Dude, I can't get away from that monkey. I'm like I got to figure out some way to be more famous than the monkey on the T-shirt.
Yeah.
I just need to make enough money to buy the company one day.
I love it. That's a good idea. Why not?
Anyway. All right. So ChatGPT is accurate. You and I have known each other for a long time. I think we met at Social Media Club Dallas years and years ago. I remember when Mike Merrill had, I think he had launched that, right? Yeah. Was that Mike or was that you?
Yeah.
For everybody.
So I was one of the co-founders of that. So it was 5 of us that kind of launched. It was at the end of 2009 going into 2010. We had launched Social Media Club of Dallas, and honestly, that was probably one of my favorite things I ever did. Was like, in the Dallas community wise, is like we all of a sudden, like, it was like social media was just kind of the new rage, and then all of a sudden, like, you had PR people and brand builders and agency folks and all these people kind of coming together in one place and just getting to know each other, technologists, all this stuff, and we would have like 400 or 500 people just show up to whatever Angelica movie theater or whatever.
Yeah,
and it was just
you packed the house, man.
It was wild. But that was fun. Mike spearheaded. I give him a ton of credit. It's actually a national organization called Social Media Club National, and it was Chris Huer and Christy, husband and wife, and out of California. And then that just like blew up. And local chapter, we had like one of the largest local chapters in the nation, and that was awesome, man. I miss it so much, actually. Like we need that again. We need what's the next version of that? I thought it'd be like Social Media Club, which then led to some crypto Web3 club or something. I don't know. I just don't know what the next thing is. And we'll figure out AI club. I don't know.
Maybe AI.
Yeah.
Club.
AI
there
club.
hasn't been anything cool enough besides social media, I guess. But I think AI it might be there. And anytime I'm going to all these conferences, and anytime there is a session on AI, there could be 4 sessions going at one time. One of them is AI. Like everybody's in that room.
Totally.
Like they don't have enough seats for it. And then no one's in the other. I feel sorry. I like look at the agenda. I'm like, oh man, I feel sorry for these guys not talking about AI.
It's all the buzz. I mean, it's all the buzz. Where like I was advising a tech company, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to put this word. We're doing insights, is what we're doing, consumer insights." And I was like, "What if you put AI powered insights?" And they're like, "Ah." And I was like, "But is it really AI? Like, are you just putting that in the?" I was like, "Don't do false advertising. Like, you got to have real AI baked in or whatever." It's just between yeah, AI and ML and everything else. It's all the rage right now for sure.
You just gave me an idea, man. I've got. We'll talk about during the little commercial break. All my my great products over here, but I think I need like AI powered matte light hold paste rascal pomade, and it probably sell a lot
That's
better.
just add it to the little byline there. It'll be like AI powered, men's hair paste or something, whatever. I don't know. Like that's genius, actually. Yeah, why
Dude,
not?
you actually now that I'm thinking about this, you could probably throw into Chat GPT like make me the world's best pomade. I don't even know if I should be
No,
releasing this, man. This
you
is like my
actually,
thing, you know.
I've gone through the same thing, and then it'll spit out like some really interesting things. Like
Yeah, like based on the best sellers, like make me a new formula. And it has all the ingredients, everything's on the web. You could probably make the world's best pomade from Chat
I'm
GPT.
telling you, that's exactly right.
Okay. Before this show airs, I've got to start an entirely new business around AI powered men's
There
grooming.
you
So
go.
we may have to kick yours to the very end of the season.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. That sounds awesome.
Okay, we could just co-founded a new AI powered pomade company.
That
You heard it here
all right.
first.
Let's do it.
Oh man. Hey, so tell me a little bit about your journey. Just the Buzz Shift story is fascinating because you start a company, sell it, get it back, sell it again. But tell us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur. Like, give me the good stuff first, like the
Sure.
highlights, the thing that everyone wants to hear, and then we're going to dive into the
Yeah,
real
yeah.
story.
So I'll try to give you the quick and dirty on that. Is I've been a lifelong entrepreneur my whole life, flipping baseball cards at 10 years old, like your bot just told us. So that is true. Literally was going to card shows, flipping cards. And it was interesting. Like at 14, the only real job I ever had was I was a certified sandwich artist at Subway. Right. And at 14, they trusted me to like close down Subway, like, and everything. And I have to say certified, by the way, certified sandwich artist.
Oh,
Let's
for
make sure
sure.
that
Wrote that
just
down.
injected in there. But my dad, like, it was interesting because right across the street from where I lived in Carrollton, Texas, I was at Subway, and my buddy was going to work at McDonald's, and he was going to make $2.50 more an hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I told my dad, I go, Dad, I'm going to leave Subway. I'm going to go work at McDonald's. And I just turned 15. And my dad, it was the first time I ever heard my dad drop the F bomb, and it was like, Cam, you're not going to work at effing. I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on this podcast. We're not going to work at effing. You're not going to work at effing McDonald's. That's what he just straight up told me. And I was like, why not? He goes, Cam, you love computers. Like, go out and get a computer job, or go out and work and help people with their computers or whatever else. So he just like said that one. I was like, how are people going to trust me? He's like, just figure it out. And literally that next day I went out, and this group in Addison was needing a contractor to help them assemble computers. And I was like, hey, I know nothing about this, but I'm willing to learn. And I essentially went in there, and they gave me the job like out of the gates, and I started assembling computers. So this is like pre.com, kind of dates me here, but I was assembling computers, and from there it kind of like my tech journey started from there. And then fast forward, I end up running an online data backup company years later, into college, pre-Dropbox and Box.net. And I cut my teeth heavy in tech and the data world and all that stuff. But I had this niche, or itch, I should say, for advertising and this creative itch. And so I got an advertising degree at North Texas. And in 2007, I saw literally Twitter go from 20,000 to about 100,000 tweets in one day. And I was down at South by Southwest in Austin. And I was like, oh my gosh, this Twitter thing is fundamentally going to change the way we communicate as entrepreneurs, as technologists, as consumers. And a lot of my clients at that point were all ad agencies. And so here I am running an online data backup company, backing up creative files to the cloud, which is just a data center, by the way. And then I learned a lot about ad agencies, and all these big ad agencies in Dallas. A lot of them were my clients, and I was like, they don't know this world of social media. They don't understand this world of digital. They know, like, print and radio and TV and all that stuff, but they don't understand this digital world. And so fast forward, like we just mentioned, 3 years later, Social Media Club of Dallas, where we met, we started that club, and out of that club, I met my co-founder, Eddie Badrina, and we started, that's actually where Eddie and I met as well. And
I didn't know that.
So we started that club, and one of the first or second events, I met Eddie, and him and I were yin and yang, like seriously yin and yang. Like, he was this pragmatic, came from the White House and all this stuff, and I'm this creative tech kid. And I was like, dude, I think you and I could come together and build something really cool together. And so he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so at that point, we said, let's just do it. And so we started the first kind of, we wanted to be like a digital strategy agency. So part BCG, McKinsey, Deloitte digital on the front end. So building like go-to-market strategies for like emerging brands, like small companies. And then ultimately that grew, and the need for digital strategy, and everybody's so tactically focused. We were like the strategist, and so scaling that and building one of the first digital strategy agencies on the internet was really wild. So did that, and then like you said, built that from 2010 to 2016, sold it, bought it back for pennies on the dollar 11 months later, sold it again in 2021, and fast forward, now I'm working on a couple new big initiatives, so it's fun. Yeah.
Oh man, wild
Yeah.
story. And so I learned that you are connected with Oak and Eden whiskey, and another super fast growing brand. But I want people, because there's nothing like it in the market. And I think you guys have some patented technology, right? Is it patented or patent pending or something?
Yeah, we have like 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah, because I'm super. I think a lot of people, most people I introduce it to, they've never heard of it before. So I want to give you a chance for a little plug on that, because it's fantastic.
No, I appreciate that. So ultimately, back in 2016, this guy Joe calls me, and Joe calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm going to build this whiskey company, and I heard that you're the guy to build this with." And I was like, "Well, I'm running this agency right now, but I have my buddy here, Brad, who actually was building his little agency inside of my agency, and he was working out a buzz shift." I was like, "You need to hire Brad. He's like the ultimate brand storyteller, narrative guy." And I said, "I think if you're going to build this, then you need the right storyteller." So where my head was at when Joe called me around this whiskey, I'm like, why in the world do you want another whiskey brand to be on the market? Like, in the sea of amber, why create another whiskey brand? Like, that makes no sense to me, right? And then that's where my head was at. I was like, I don't want anything to do with, like, why? Like, I don't get it. And so I brought Brad and Joe. I connected the two of them, and long and short, 5 years later, here I am finding myself working with both of them. And what I figured out was, it wasn't about the whiskey, and it was really about, they just buy their whiskey from, actually, and I can say this, they literally buy their whiskey from the same people that, Bullet buys their whiskey from, and Angel Envy and stuff like that. So ultimately, what I learned was, this whiskey is the same base. All these companies actually get the same base from the same resource, and they're not necessarily all distilling. Some people are distilling their own, and that gets really, really expensive. But the base is part of it, but it's really about what you do with that base that takes it to a next level. And so what Joe and his brother have is a wood spire, American oak, French oak, whatever, a wood piece of, it's just a piece of wood, 6 inches long. And they take that piece of wood as a mechanism or a vessel, and they put that in everything from Cabernet to honey. They soak it literally in Cabernet, for instance. And then a couple weeks later, they take that wood spire out and then drop it into a bottle of whiskey. And it's called in-bottle finishing. And ultimately, it changes the flavor profile completely of the whiskey. And then now we've gotten to a point where you can actually go online and go to oakandeden.com and build your own custom bottle of whiskey with any infusion, wood, proof. You can select I want 90 proof or this, whatever. So and then I can infuse it with anything. Like, I mean, that's what's really wild. And we've been able to personalize these with, your own name on it, and even co-brand it with companies' names and everything else. So I think, we're moving into a world of personalization, and there's no other spirit brand in the entire world where you can customize your own bottle of spirit and then get it shipped to you through the 3-tier system, abiding by that and everything, and get it shipped to you directly to your door. And Joe has gotten multiple patents on this. And I said, guys, I want to be a part of this. And now we've seen this rocket ship of just growth on e-commerce. And that has just never been seen before. And in a system that's so old, since Prohibition,
Mhm.
that, it's Oak and Eden's changing the game, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. So they brought me back in to be basically their chief growth officer after I sold out of my last company, and super excited to be a part of it.
Man, it's awesome. Awesome story. And met those guys many years ago. I knew
Yeah,
Daniel Rowland from all the way back when I was a
yeah.
kid,
Daniel's such a great guy.
selling cable door to door for his
Yeah,
brother. So we've got all this interconnected
totally.
web. Um, okay, so things weren't always rosy, right? It's not like, Cam was born. He made millions selling baseball cards, and he made millions doing this, and life is great.
Yeah,
This podcast is really about digging into some of these traps that we fall into along the way and along the journey, and maybe some that we continue to
yeah.
fall into. Maybe we have a propensity to move in a certain direction, and we have to watch out for that, whether it's working too much or focusing too much on sales and not profit, or neglecting the family or whatever. There's a million
Hmm.
different traps. So is there anything that stands out with you where you're looking back and there was a moment in time or a couple of moments in time where you're like, oh shit, I'm trapped, like I need to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do
Yeah,
to
I
get
mean,
out
I
of
think
this?
there's a couple different. There absolutely was 100%. So you know, in my 20s, as I was growing my tech company at the time, here I am graduating college, and it is like we lived in this, like, I don't want to call it Gary V culture, but it was like hustle at all costs kind of thing, where it was
Mm-hmm.
like I looked at my bank account and I'm like, this is great. And I had the nice car, I had the money, all that stuff, but my personal life was like almost in shambles, right? And it was because like I was at the data center till 3 4 in the morning, and it was tough. It was really tough because like I had just gotten married, and ultimately it was like, where do you value your time and energy and everything else? And as an entrepreneur, I think it's, as a first time entrepreneur, it's really, when you get kind of a taste of the success, then you just get sucked in, and you know this, like, you just get sucked in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get sucked in, then like it's just like, man, you're if you got to fly to New York and go to, I got to be in SF tomorrow, like we're gonna go meet with these people, and I got this deal and this deal, and then all of a sudden like you're never home, you're gone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so finding balance over hustle was not something that I was really focused on at all. So I would say that in my 20s, my kind of aha for me was like, I felt like on the outside it was like everything was awesome, like, and everything else, but like inside I was like not fulfilled. Like I knew something was wrong. And I think, truth be told, I was truly seeking the Lord, and really
Mm-hmm.
this his presence, and I think that, but
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, I think that, I was broken inside as a person. Like my relationships, I kind of watch dwindle away, because like your best friends, they're hanging out every weekend and doing all these things and all this stuff, and like here I am working, like, like I'm like, I don't have time to, like, I mean, I would throw a party or whatever else in my 20s, whatever, every once in a while, but like I was, it was all about hustle, right? And I think trying to figure out what that balance was. And so ultimately, I had a failed marriage in my 20s, and that was a big, there was multiple facets of that. And I would just say, you got to really figure out what you value in your life. And sometimes it takes, you know, you know, decades for some people to figure this out. And I think for me, it was like 2007 to 2010. It was that period of, you know, even right before social media and everything else, right? And then 2010 hit, and then all of a sudden, 2010, honestly, Twitter was my aha moment, like I mentioned to you, where I felt a
Mm,
sense of connection with people that actually were kind of like me. Because we didn't have like,
mm,
it's like we take for granted now, we live in this world of like social media, which is contributing to a lot of mental health issues overall. But at
mm,
least we had some type of community where we could empathize with other people that are going through things, and I'd be like, oh man, they're going through this too. But back in those days, in my 20s, there was no Twitter. It was like, you know what I mean, like we weren't, you didn't
mhm.
connect with other entrepreneurs who were going through similar things. Like that I think is an issue, so
Yeah, that's a big
yeah.
difference. Hey, let me ask you this along this way. I'm
Yeah.
always curious about this balance
Yeah.
versus hustle. When you knew you needed balance, but you like to hustle. Maybe you're watching Gary Vee, you're seeing that, you
Yeah, totally.
know, rise thing, or taking a break, like that's for the week. Or did you like dismiss it like that's I'm never gonna make it? Or what was kind of going through your head? Why did you deny that part of your life?
Because it was all about me, and that was the problem. It was not about others. It was so self-centered. It was everything was about like, what can I do for my personal, it was all about my growth. It was all about me, and it wasn't about like lifting others up. And I think there was a
Mm,
switch where I realized, and I think it was 2010 when I really realized, like, oh my gosh, like I have certain skills, I have certain expertise, I have certain things that like I can help other people. And like all of a sudden, like I just started having coffee and conversations with people. And I didn't ask for money or time or anything like that. I really, they would ask me, hey, how did you do this? Like, how they were, people were calling me at that point and saying, hey, Cam, like I'm building a new SaaS company, or I'm going to build a new brand, or I'm going to do this. What are your thoughts on how should I launch this new e-commerce thing or whatever? People would call me for different things. And then I'm like, hey, let's just go grab coffee. And then what I really figured out was when I started pouring out like my knowledge to people and my thoughts on like, hey, this is what I would do or whatever else. It fueled me like I'd never been fueled before. And so it was like, so there was the
mm,
change for me was like truly helping other people help elevate myself. And I think that I think was the big game changer, was like I had never been asked for my advice on something, right? I was the 20 something year old kid, like basically moving in my 30s. And so I think the minute people started asking me for advice, then I started like, oh my gosh, like you want me to help you, like what, like why? And then when I
mm,
started just pouring out like any knowledge, they're like, Cameron, they had so much gratitude towards me that I just was like, oh my gosh, like how can I help other people, right? Because it sounds to me that there's other
mm,
people going through things, and I don't have all the answers, but I at least I know some things. And so ultimately I think that for me, my whole thing turned into my true north being growth. It was like, how do I help
mm.
people in their journey with growth overall? And I think that just pouring out knowledge as much as possible, and how can I help you? How can I help? Right. And
Well, it sounds like growth and
yeah,
contribution, right? Because you're making a massive contribution to
yeah.
other people's
But that's
lives
that's the thing, is
in
just
that.
like that was a gift that I realized that was like God's gift. And that
Mhm,
it was like, how can I help empower other people? How can I help, steward other people in different ways? And so my whole world started to turn around in a different way, right? And I started where my values and my system, my beliefs, everything started to change. And it really wasn't until I would say like I feel like I got in full stride, and probably 2014, 15, 16, like where I felt like I got really in a good stride with, just my mindset overall. I think my mindset was, it was like, I have to figure out myself. I have to like be able to understand and truly, Eddie kind of instilled this thing about reflection time in me, where he's like, he would just go somewhere and then be like, hey, I've got to go. He would put it on his calendar called reflection time. I'm like, what is this reflection time? And
Mhm,
and he would
mhm,
literally just go and like reflect on life and the week and all this stuff, and started saying, okay, really thinking, how can you do better, and so like just turning yourself into a better person. And I think that him and I started, really coming together on that, and that helped. I saw this, and the benefits that gave him. And so I said, man, like maybe I need to be, spending way more time reflecting. And so I started to get into this, physical and spiritual journey. And like, it was just like my growth journey overall, everything was starting to change. Right. And
mhm,
my mindset started to change. My relationships with people started to change. And the people, I think the thing is that I was surrounding myself with people that basically sucked all the life out of me, right? And then
mhm,
it was the detractors. They were sucking it out, right? And I was there trying to
mhm,
fix a lot of these people that were just sucking all the life out of me. And I realized, like, you got to surround yourself with not those detractors. Like, it's like they're going to take all this energy from you, and it's like, man, they are going to just bring you down with them. And I think I got stuck in that trap, right? It's the detractors, and they suck that energy from you, and
mhm.
you got to move beyond that.
You reminded me of in 2012. I had this guy come into my life who happened to be, found out later on, he was Tony Robbins' business
Oh,
partner
wow.
for 18 years at the time. And he came into my life, and one of the first things he said was, "You're lacking vision." And I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm the founder of a company, and I'm growing, and I just acquired this place in
Mm,
Kansas City." And so we sit down, and two things that he taught me that I'll never forget, and I've taught everybody else, is one, um, you have to you cannot give
that's right.
what you do not have, or you can only give what you have. So if you want to be out there in the world helping people, helping them be more positive and confident and empowered, and along their entrepreneur journey, and you want them to have great relationships with their wife and
Yeah.
their kids and everything else. Um, if you don't have it yourself, it's going to be difficult to transfer that over. I would argue
Mm,
impossible. And the other thing you said, which is what you just alluded to, is you have to protect your emotional state or your
yeah,
mindset or whatever you want to call
that's
it
right.
at all cost. And he had me build this visual around my emotional state of a moat around my emotional state. And he's like, look, it could be your mother, it could be your brother, it could be somebody really close to you, it could be your best employee, that you might have to cut ties with if you're really serious about being in a peak emotional state at all times. Because he's like, Ben, you want to serve people. In order to serve people, you got to have it. In order to have it, you have to protect
Spot on.
what you have, right? You can't let people come in and infiltrate. So it sounds like you had to build that
That's right.
moat, and I'm assuming there were some
Yeah, there was a
casualties
lot of
along the way.
casualties along the way,
You had
and
to
that's
cut
why,
people out.
and that's the thing. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that couldn't believe that I didn't want them in my. It's like I was like, I have to do what's best for me and the way forward, and I've got and my entire mindset changed, and even like how I led people. I went from being truly a boss of like having a bunch of employees and being more autocratic and like do it this way or whatever else, to actually like
Mm,
truly leading and letting people have, high autonomy, high responsibility. Let them do it the way they need to do it. Like, hey, here's the end goal, this is what we need done, let you guys figure out how to get there, right? That mindset, even to like
hmm
lead people, change because of this transformation with me, right? So like that, I was like a horrible leader like for many years, where I was like, I just get this done, go. And it was a maturity thing. It was just like, hey, do it this way. Like I want it to look like this. I want it to be like this. Da, 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 like go. That's exactly how I want it. Right. And then I realized that, like, honestly, if,
Mhm.
if it's like, well, what's the goal? Well, we want 100 new customers in the next 30 days. Okay, cool. We'll figure out how to get the 100 new customers the next day. But I think it's like you care, too many people care about all the little bitty things that they get hung up on, like all these little nuances. And if you just really set the goal for people, like your leadership style changes. So like during that time of mindset
Mhm.
and transformation, like I literally had an entire epiphany around leadership even. And I probably,
Mhm.
Simon Sinek and like all these different, great kind of people that have written all these great, amazing books and authors and everything else. I just started dialing in on leadership qualities and everything else, because it wasn't just about leading in business. It was about even how I led like my kids, right? And so I went from being the single
Mhm.
guy to married to divorced, single dad, to now, we have my wife and I now we have 3 kids total. And so it's like, how do you steward and foster these great relationships and lead them, and not just do everything for them and tell them what to do, like let them figure it out. Like there's so many things that
Mhm.
parenting, and it's funny because Eddie and I always related, like, when we said we had like 29 people in the office, and we're like, they're basically like our children. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? These are our
Mhm.
kids. And so
Mhm.
they're and they truly are. Well, and they really were like our kids. And so we
Mhm.
had to like foster these
Mhm.
relationships and lead them differently. And I started taking a lot of the application that I would do in business and apply that to how I even, raise my own kids, which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a parent, you have to
Exactly.
serve first. Like that's one of our values at the Gents place. And you have no choice but to serve first. That's why I always love, actually, I love my team members getting
Yeah,
pregnant and having their first child and coming back to work, because they're just a
100%.
totally different person. They're like, oh gosh, I can't believe I acted that way
That's so
before.
true, man. So true.
Hey, I'm going to take a 180-degree turn. I'm going to ask you a
Oh, no.
question you weren't expecting, but I think you'll have an answer to. So you're being banished to a remote island, and you can only take one men's grooming product with you. You don't have to state the brand unless you have a brand affinity. It doesn't have to be mine. No, no, because I'm
Yeah,
going to talk about mine.
I,
So,
I
um, okay. So is there like an eye cream? Like you only take one thing, man,
well,
to
men's
look
grooming.
good and
Okay,
feel
so
good.
not beyond hair care. You know what? This would have been a different answer 3 or 4 years ago than it is today. So I believe
Okay.
that this is what's crazy. This is gonna be crazy. A tinted mineral like sunscreen SPF moisturizer would probably be the way to go, because
Oh.
and that's what I said. The answer today, and what I've learned is like,
Hmm.
I I don't think there's ever been a time up until the last like couple of years where like men have actually like, I was like, you're supposed to use moisturizer. No, that's for women. Like, what are you talking about? Like what?
Yeah.
Or putting like a tinted something on your skin, you're like, whoa, that's makeup, bro. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know about that or whatever, you know? And so there's this whole like this mindset has completely changed. So I would say if there's one thing, it would probably be a moisturizer, and it would probably be tinted, and it would probably be SPF. But I would say
SPF.
before,
Okay.
when I actually, and now I'm losing my hair, but it was probably like a clay pomade. That's probably what I like. I don't
Okay.
know. But ultimately, and that's what's funny is like I helped Jack Black, that brand, for a long, long time
Mhm.
in BuzzShift grow, and then they sold to Edgewell. And not to knock on them, but like I truly feel that, I knew that there was a next level of men's grooming products, and you produce some like next level, like the R&D and everything
Mhm.
else that's out there is just,
Mhm.
it's needed. And truth be told, there hasn't been just a lot of great quality men's products on the market. A lot of them are garbage. And you start looking into what you're putting on your face and your skin and everything else, and it's just like, man, you got to do your diligence now of like, there's a lot of garbage out there. And
There's a lot of stuff. Every guy in his garage like is making a beard oil.
yeah,
It seems like so. It is weird because I opened in '08, our
yeah,
first business in '08. And if you would have told me, 14 years later, I'd be putting like, eye cream on my face in the
yeah,
middle of a podcast,
no way.
I would have said, no way, man. But look
Love
at
it.
this.
There
Look
it
at this.
is.
This is
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah. No shame
I
at
have no
all. Yeah,
shame
totally.
whatsoever.
I agree.
So we got
I
a
need to get
Rascal
some of
brand.
that
They're sponsoring
little
the
eye
show
cream.
today.
All right,
I
dude.
do.
I'm
I need to
I'm
get
in
you
on that.
some. Yeah. When we get real sophisticated on the podcast, I'm going to be sending a box of stuff to people before the show so you can actually talk
We'll
about
do
your
it.
favorite. But, this is still in the garage, bootstrapped. We're figuring things
Well, I
out
think, and that goes
over
into
here.
like, I mean, in the world of like commoditized brands, like all this stuff is commoditized. I mean, at the end of the day, like the brand, like, people are gonna like, now people are doing their diligence and looking at the actual ingredients and like, is this actually worth it? Whatever else. But the value, I mean, is all in the brand and the brand experience. So like, I think you guys are doing like
Mhm.
Rascal's got great brand aesthetic, great. I mean, the experience is great. So
Mhm.
like, ultimately, I mean, I think it's a great product overall. Like yeah,
Well, it's kind of
same.
like Oak and Eden too. Like there's only so many different things you can put
Right.
in a product. And so, you can, the products that we put, the ingredients we put in our products are very thoughtful, but they exist out in the world. So it is about, it's like the
Right.
mixologist, you're a great brand has a great mixologist, and then it has a story and a narrative, like you said,
Yeah.
Brad is
Hundred
brilliant
percent.
with. Connect emotionally to people that there's a reason to follow, a reason to do business with them. Hey, as we wrap up, you gave me in the pre-show, gave me a couple of books I hadn't heard of, and so kind of staying on the focus here with um, avoiding traps or getting yourself out of a trap. There's a couple of books that I want you to talk about and how it could potentially help you get out of some of these different traps. So one was 100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. I just started
Yeah.
following him on Twitter, and I had no
Oh my
idea
gosh.
he'd written a book. I mean, literally in the last like 3 days. And I like all the stuff he's
Okay,
saying. So tell me
well,
about that book
I'm going to
first.
tell you, like, if you are thinking about building a company at all, or an entrepreneur right now, the $100 million offer piece by Alex Hormozy like is a game changer because ultimately, the way he looks at everything through how to create value out of something is like really really interesting. And so like, again, he talks about like a commoditized product. You can have two of the exact same products, but how you frame that, how you position that, how empathetic you are, does the value, it's the product market fit kind of thing and everything else. But like how you frame those offers up and being able to test and learn, because he basically gets into the world of like, too many people focus on the product itself and not enough time on how you offer that to the world, right? And I think that like how you're offering that up to the world, where you're offering that up to the world, that is where you should spend all your time. And most people spend their time on R&D and focus on the product, and they're like, oh, we're not selling enough, maybe we need to add another product line, maybe we need to create another product, maybe we need to retool this product. And maybe it's not the product issue at all, maybe it's just how we frame it. And he gives a really good formula on $100 million offer on how to really formulate positioning and messaging and all that stuff around that. And I think it's something that every marketer should have.
Well, that's a trap in and of itself, is this perfection mindset around, I can't launch the website until it's perfect. I can't launch the
That's
product
exactly
until it's
right.
perfect. I can't do this until it's perfect. Right.
Yes.
Okay. I like that. All right. There was
A couple more.
There was another one. Good leaders give directions. Great leaders give direction. I had to read that 3 times because I'm slow, and then I caught that there was
One letter different.
difference. Tell me
Yeah,
about
I
that.
mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but and I did a Forbes article on this, but Simon Sinek really talked about this and a couple of his, actually multiple of his books, including Start with Why. But basically, most good leaders basically say, hey, this is how to do, like, please just go follow these directions and do this. Most of the great leaders out there, and what I've had to really transform my brain is to just say, I'm going to give them good direction on, this is my vision, this is what I want, and let them have the autonomy to go build it the way they want to build it, right? And I think that is a big deal, where it's like, you don't need to give somebody step by step directions. They just need direction on how, like, what needs to be done and what the
Mm,
goal is, and focus on the end in mind, and then like let them back engineer on how to get there or whatever else. And so I think that ultimately, the more you can give people the autonomy and talk through that, and they're like, man, this guy trusts me, and it plays into the trust, um, then, like, even if it takes multiple iterations, it's, the fact is that you've got that person's trust, and they're going to put way more time and energy and create a better product, or they're, whatever they're doing is going to be that much better, just because you've given them the autonomy. So I think, that's a big
mm.
piece for me, is just good leaders, give directions, but I think great leaders actually do just give direction, with no S.
Yeah, I really believe that people generally like to be told what they need to do in order to win, but not
That's exactly
how to
right.
do it.
That's exact that, the
Like,
how to do it is,
right?
that right there is, letting them figure out their own ways to get there is everything. And I think that's the big
Hmm.
that's the big thing that early stage, and, or I wouldn't say early stage, but first time entrepreneurs have a big problem with this, because they want to pull all the levers, right? And at the end of the day, that's not leadership, and solving people's problems is not the thing either, because that doesn't create a good leader. Delegation creates good leadership, in that, where you can delegate and you can trust in your people to get the job done. So I think that it's the same thing as
Hmm.
children. Like, we have to you know people that aren't even capable of, uh figuring out how to, like, our kids don't know how to execute on certain things, but the fact is that if you give them the autonomy, it's like, they'll surprise you. I can't tell you how many times my son is like surprised me. I'm like, wow, you're able to just figure that out, and it's like, and it's like, I didn't even have to tell you that, and that was wild. Like, it kind of
Hmm.
baffles me sometimes. So it's cool.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We've not covered one last thing here before we go, and I know it's kind of like you're coming out of stealth mode. You and Brian are building this thing,
Yeah,
and I think it's super cool. But tell us about
yeah,
the Runway app and what you guys are doing, and what the next several months looks like, and where we can go to check you out for more info, and Runway app, and
yeah,
anything
I
else you
appreciate
want
it.
us to
Yeah,
follow.
so after I left agency world, I had, we had multiple brands that had these big exits, and they were emerging kind of brands, and we saw them just grow and pop, and then they sold, but we were just getting retainers out of that. So I left. I didn't have equity in those companies. I didn't have rev share deals in those deals. It was just like agency life, and I was like, I knew I wanted to get back in building product once I left agency world. And I had been percolating this idea for about 3.5 years. And I said, there's 5 million Shopify stores online right now. There's 50,000 bag companies, like literally companies that like sell backpacks or
Hmm.
whatever. 50,000 bag brands on that are based on Shopify, right? So Amazon is one play in itself, where if you want to build a brand, like, some could argue, hey, Amazon's a good place to do that. For me, I don't like the fact that, companies don't get their data, and they don't get to focus on lifetime value and get to nurture their customers, all that stuff. So the reason why Shopify exists is because it's a lifetime value play, and I get to actually connect with my customers and get to nurture them and everything else. So I love Shopify brands. So the issue, though, with 5 million brands is, how do you find the next cool emerging brand that's popping up, the next skincare brand, for instance, like Rascal, right? With all the skincare brands out there,
Hmm.
the men's grooming product brands, how do you find the next, like, cool thing like Rascal, right? And ultimately, we want it to be kind of the Spotify for product brands, right? Where you could pop on and you're like, wow, look at that playlist. Brian uses Rascal, and I can see all the products he uses. He's saved those to his collections, everything else. So the Runway is the platform for helping emerging brands on one side, but it's helping consumers evaluate and discover their next favorite brand. And the future of the Runway here is truly social commerce. So one part, we're launching as a discovery platform, and it's in pre-launch right now. It's on the runway.app. And we're going from discovery, and our next big thing is around feedback. So in your post-purchase journey of your shopping cart and everything else, we're getting feedback on their brand experience and their social presence and everything else. And we're creating a thing called a brand index score. And so basically, we'll be able to score these different brands. What's interesting about this is that, we take a lot of brands, like, for instance, I'll use Magic Spoon as an example, and I hope I don't offend Magic Spoon. But Magic Spoon cereal, like, I actually, they've reformulated, and I actually like their product now. But when I first saw Magic Spoon, I was like, this is the most intense, like, amazing brand experience ever. Like, the branding was awesome, the social presence was awesome, everything else. So, like, I would have given it a 5-star, like 5-star. But when I first tasted the product for the first time, I was like, this kind of tastes like chalk, and I would have given it a 1-star. So
Yeah,
I think fundamentally that the 1 and 5-star ratings and review system is broken. And so what we need to focus on is, what do you like about that brand? Do you like the brand experience? Do you like the product? Do you not like the product? Like, whatever else. And so, like, the key attributes and traits are the key things. So we need to get into more quality style, quality kind of attributes and traits of these brands, whether they're a Miz and a Main, like a clothing brand, or they're a men's grooming product, or a cereal brand. It doesn't matter. But the reality is that we think the future of brands is all about getting good feedback so that they can essentially iterate on their products and create better products. So one part discovery, one part feedback, and our long-term gain is really to focus on co-creation. We think really the big future is where creators and brands come together and start co-creating. And the Runway, we really want that to be that place where you can help emerging brands take off with creators, because creators have the audience. Brands don't always have the audience. So we're like, hey, if we can leverage the audience of the creators, and they can kind of do this co-branding play with a brand, and they can launch on the Runway, we're the mechanism to help these creators and brands come together and help launch new cool things together.
I love that, man, because I know, and I'm probably sitting in this seat where we made really good products and made a really good brand, and we put all of our time and energy into that, but there's only so much time in the day. And so now you have to be an expert at creating product, and now an expert also at promoting it and marketing it. And it's why agencies like BuzzShift existed, and why the runway.app will be successful and a great partner. So I'm looking forward to that, and appreciate you guys having us on your site. Cam,
for real.
Hey, we could talk 100%. For hours. And I know every time I go to the coffee shop, you're going to be there.
I really appreciate you having me, man. This is exciting. This is really cool. I love this podcast setup too. This is great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And until next time on the Untrapped Entrepreneur, thanks for listening, guys. See ya.